Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Civilian Medical Podcast. We're on episode 68, and this time we're not going to talk about anything trauma. We're going to talk about some medical stuff. So, what you thinking about this episode, Sam?
I don't think we're recording right now.
It says live.
It doesn't for me.
Yeah, I've got live on my side.
All right, cool. We'll go ahead then.
We are definitely out of practice on this a little bit. So, I've been working a lot more EMS hours, and then still trying to run a business, and everything else is going on. So,
I like how you're taking the blame after you've been hounding me for weeks to film, and I've just been completely ignoring you.
I'm trying to be the nice guy here, like I really am. But yeah, you've been a little bit busy at work too, correct?
Yeah, we've been crazy busy at work, crazy busy at home. It's just a busy time of year.
Yeah, so no problem. We're gonna record an episode. We know you guys have been missing us. Sean even has been harassing us. Like, did you guys die? Like, you guys still alive? So making Sean happy and hopefully making everyone else happy. So new episode here. So this episode is still gonna be sponsored by Primary Arms. We appreciate them sponsor our episodes, even though we're being slackers about it. I've been shooting a lot more, trying to get to the range a little bit better, working on my reaction time. Like, I'm not used to that. Like, I'm used to just, all right, hold up, let's shoot, let's make sure the camera's in frame, like everything looks good for the gram. But I really have been practicing more on my reaction time, like getting out of the holster to on target time versus maybe 2 rounds on target time. So I did pick up a shot timer recently, and I think that's pretty cool. And they have a shot timer, which is the one I picked up at Primary Arms, and you can get a discount if you use our discount code.
Ooh, we have a discount code now. That's exciting.
Yes, I was trying to pull it up, and I don't remember what it is. We'll put in the show notes what it is. So I think it's FRN is 10% off, I believe. Don't quote me on that, but I'm sure if you contact We Like Shooting, they can get you like a really good deal on it.
Awesome.
Hey, so no free time for you? You haven't been doing, like, besides YouTube videos and flying and
YouTube videos, flying, raising a child. You know, he just started scooting now, and he was using a power cord as a via ferrata the other day trying to get to the outlet. So panic ordered a bunch of baby proof and stuff, and went from there. So, surviving.
Nice. So this episode, I want to talk about CPR. I think this is something that is underutilized. My nose is itching, sorry. COVID, not just kidding. That we've had in my county, it seems like we had an uptick of some pediatric stuff, and cardiac arrests are an uptick, and it's not really anything to show for it. But I think CPR definitely saves lives, like we just talked about. Like, I have been dumping rounds down range. I'm carrying a weapon every single time I go out. Like, all this stuff, we spend a lot of money on guns and ammos and optics and all this cool stuff when we're more likely to use medical than we ever are to use our firearm.
Yeah, and I mean it's a really high yield thing. So no, not everybody you do CPR on is going to live, but I guess in my experience professionally, I've never showed up in an out of hospital cardiac arrest and ended up getting somebody back that didn't have bystander CPR started first. Like, ambulances are still in a good area, 5 to 7 minutes away. So, I think it's just so important, and it's such an underutilized thing, and you don't need to buy anything for it. You just have to get some training, and that's it. So I don't really think there's much excuse. There's not much worse. I feel like it's happened a lot to us recently, is like you get the dispatch and they'll say like, oh, possible cardiac arrest, bystander, or callers refusing to do CPR. And I don't know why, like whether it's a physical limitation, like just they're nervous, I think most of the time, but that's pretty crappy to hear because you know what the outcome's going to be when you get on scene.
Definitely. I agree the same way. Like, you get dispatched to cardiac arrest and it's like unknown downtime. Nobody's doing CPR. You're like, man, this guy's dead. Like, you hate to be that way, but it's the way it is. But if I get dispatched to cardiac arrest, public place, witnessed arrest, bystander CPR in progress, I'm like, heck yeah. Like, that fires me up. Or, if we can get get the fire department on scene quick. Like, or, we know we have bystander CPR going, fire department gets on scene quick, and they're telling us, they're using AED that said shock advised. I was like, heck yeah. Like, I feel confident I'm going to get this guy back. Now, whether or not he survives, that's another story, because he still has a long road ahead of him. And that's whole nother podcast about how, what happens post cardiac arrest. We fly a lot of our Ross patients out because of the distance to our medical center for PCA, stuff like that. So we use a helicopter a lot. I know that's what your primary flight job, you are. So we do that, and basically that's for speed, because we know we can get them to a cath lab and get a stent placed. Like that's probably what happened, why they went into cardiac arrest. So we use a helicopter a lot for that, and we get Ross back and we sing Kumbaya and everything's good to go. And then the flight crew comes and like, all right, this is awesome. And then we find out 2 days later, the guy died. And like, oh, so, my service, we run about a 50% Ross rate, which is good. We bounce between 50 and 60 generally. Sometimes we drop down below that, but then our actual discharge rate's probably like 3%. And so we see that like we can get Ross back, but then we can't get him discharged. And so is that our CPR? Is it the hospital? Is it just we have super sick patients, which is the case? So there's a lot of stuff that goes into it.
Yeah, and so there's two things there you touched on. I think so. Our service started using we call it ART CPR. It's an advanced resuscitation technique, and I think right now for all CPR we're standing at about a 15 to 20% neurologic recovery rate walking out of the hospital, which is amazing. I don't know what our ROS grade is there, but the one thing you touched on there is the cause of cardiac arrest. And I feel like the term cardiac arrest gets so misused, and then heart attacks and people confusing the two. And I want to clarify that really quick for people that might not know. A heart attack is a blockage in one of the coronary arteries. So one of the arteries that supplies oxygen to the heart itself gets blocked, and that will cause a heart attack. So heart attacks can cause cardiac arrest, which is when the heart stops beating or beats in a way that it can't eject blood. But heart attacks aren't necessarily a cardiac arrest. They're not always the exact same thing. So that's one cause. Somebody's strangled, that's not a heart attack, but it can cause cardiac arrest. So there's a lot of different things that can lead to the heart stopping there. And I think that's something that you get kind of mixed messaging on. I love the news stories that they're like 85% of all deaths are cardiac or from cardiac arrest. It's like, well, actually 100% of deaths are cardiac arrest. But yeah, it's just kind of a funny terminology that is used incorrectly.
Definitely. So one of the things I want to talk about in this episode was CPR myths, and I pulled up a link, and I don't know where it's from, emergencyfirstresponse.com, and it's nearly 1/3 of UK adults are not comfortable performing CPR, and 54% of Americans report knowing how to do CPR. So I thought that was a pretty cool statistic. Like that's not a myth, but at the same time, like that's pretty cool that at least 50, you got a 50-50 shot. Someone at least has seen CPR, has had a little bit of education. Maybe they saw it on TV. Maybe they watched a YouTube video. Maybe they watched PrepMedic's channel. Bless their hearts. But hey, we made it 8 minutes without us cracking on you. But you had that infant CPR and go nuts. So that's what I was thinking about. But 50% of Americans at least understand the concept of doing CPR.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing. It's so widespread. And I think there was a news story not too long ago that somebody was saved because somebody saw CPR on TV, and miraculously they watched the one TV show that actually did CPR correctly and performed CPR. So, that is an interesting stat, but it should be higher because it's just a knowledge-based thing. Like you don't need anything to do CPR. But I think that comes up with the kind of the first myth. What's the number one myth on that website?
So number one myth is you'll be required to perform mouth-to-mouth on a stranger.
Ugh. Have you ever done mouth-to-mouth? Like legit mouth-to-mouth?
I did one time on an infant.
Okay.
I don't remember if I was an EMT or a paramedic at the time, but I knew I was on, like, we have volunteer rescue squads that come out and help EMS by that. And I was doing that, and a pediatric cardiac arrest came out, and I was right around the corner, literally saw the street sign when the tones dropped, and went in, did CPR, had crap with me, and ended up doing mouth to mouth, and like remember the formula going in my mouth, and I was like, probably not the best move, but that's probably, that's maybe 15, 20 years ago. That's a long time ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I've done mouth. I've never done it on an adult, and we'll never do it on an adult. But I'd have one time on a kid.
Yeah, so I've never done mouth to mouth. I think the situation you described is like the one time I would do mouth to mouth because, that uh, airway is so important to the kids. Usually it's an airway obstruction that's causing that cardiac arrest. So, in that case, I would. But yeah, with adults, never. I would never do mouth to mouth. And, really, there's nothing to support doing mouth to mouth on an adult. I think all the statistics that I've read are that your survival rates on just doing CPR, hitting the chest, and not doing any mouth to mouth is just as good as doing a 30 to 2 ratio for that. So, if you're on your own, just do compression only and wait for somebody else to get on scene that has a bag valve mask, some advanced airways. And like the other thing with the kid is that they're probably not carrying a bunch of diseases. They're too young to really have a life of debauchery.
Have a crack habit.
Have a crack habit, crazy weird pathogens and stuff. But adults, no, that's gross. And I can deal with some formula in my mouth. I don't think I can deal with last night's chili in my mouth. That, oh
Beer and pizza
man, that's
coming back
gross.
up as after we hit the diving board. I'm like, no, thank you.
Everybody dies after they eat the grossest thing imaginable. So if you eat clean, you're never gonna die. But yeah, I agree. I wouldn't do mouth to mouth. Anybody that's watching this that feels like they'd have to do mouth to mouth if somebody goes down, you do not have to do that. If you're just doing compressions, guess what? That's going to do a lot for them.
Yeah, like I would even today. Like if I pulled a kid out of the water and like I think this kid's got a legitimate chance of survival, I'm gonna do mouth to mouth. Like it doesn't bother me. If I'm at a restaurant and a little infant starts choking and all of a sudden I can't get the food free or whatever, and the kid goes into cardiac arrest right in front of me because of a choking, I'm gonna do mouth to mouth. Like it's just but that's a personal decision. But if the adult goes down at the restaurant grabbing their chest, I'm not doing mouth to mouth. I will do chest compressions all day long until the ambulance gets there. But I'm not touching mouth to mouth.
Well, you'll do like compressions for a solid like 15 seconds, and then you'll get tired.
So. Oh boy, somebody's got to take over. I've been known to like look at cops going, "Hey, CPR?" And they're like, "No." Like, well, today's a great time to learn. I'm gonna go over here and do some chest compressions for me because I'm tired.
Yeah. Yep. So
was that myth mentioned? Like, I guess we can talk about that next because I was like, says the myth number 2 is CPR is difficult, and like you kind of brought that up, but it's not difficult, but it is exhausting.
Yeah, it's like I think conceptually it's really easy. I mean, it's just as simple as finding the center of the sternum, putting your hands there, and pushing down on the chest like you're compressing a tennis ball flat at a rate of at least 100 beats a minute. So if you're an optimist, staying alive. If you're a pessimist, another one bites the dust. Both work very well for keeping pace. So it's that easy. And I think the myth says that they did a study where like 86% of children ages 9 to 18 could correctly perform CPR after receiving hands-on training. Like if a 9-year-old can learn it, you can probably learn it, unless you're an 8-year-old watching this, and then maybe you can't. I don't know. We have no data. But it's very easy to do conceptually. I personally find myself not doing not adequate, but like not optimal compressions after probably 3 to 4 minutes. My compression ability starts to go downhill, and that's when it's time to pass off. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I'm honestly I know this is bad, but like that 2-minute mark, I can feel it. Like I am like, holy crap! Like I'm tired because we have the feedback devices on our monitors, so we immediately put the feedback device. It provides a metronome for us, so we know that we set our metronome at 110 to kind of give us some leadway either way. But man, by 2 minutes when we're supposed to be swapping, I'm typically like, all right, man, I'm ready for another job. Like slide in there, let's do someone else. But yeah, it is. If you do legit CPR, it's a workout, and like you will be pouring sweat. But it's not necessarily difficult. It is physically exhausting.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the key with that is the more people that are trained, you can probably find somebody to take over for you. And I think one of the hardest parts with it is just starting. So if you're the one to initiate CPR, I bet you somebody else around you is also trained in it. But that first step into initiating CPR is probably the scariest step. So you can probably convince somebody else to like, hey, anybody else trained in CPR? I need somebody to take over. That's a big thing. And even when EMS shows up, like I've used bystanders before. I've been like, hey, it's me and my partner, and we got other stuff to do. Can you keep doing CPR? Can you take over? Things like that. So, not hard mentally, but definitely hard physically, or can be.
Confession time. I hate doing the first round of compressions.
Oh yeah, it's gross.
It is so gross. Like I am more than happy to be second guy on. Like boom, like you've already got the ribs cracked and broken, and like I'm gonna like that first. If you do a good like 2 inch depth, especially like a little old lady, little old man, like you're gonna pop some ribs, and like that feeling is disgusting. And it's even worse, like especially now you're doing CPR for like 25, 30 minutes, and now people's hands are like in press into the chest. So, like you're like, oh, there's my spot, like because that's where the tension in their chest is.
Yep.
It's so gross.
Yep. The first, I think, like usually it's 3 compressions it takes me to get that sternum kind of separated from that rib cage and really get the good bounce in there. And the nice thing about being a paramedic and now on flights is that I very rarely have to be the first person to do CPR. Like I haven't done CPR in a hot minute because there's usually always somebody else that can do it for us, and we've got other things we're doing. But I agree. I hate starting CPR. It's the worst. Actually, you know what? I lied. I did CPR like 3 weeks ago. We like landed and realized that other
Yeah, I've
things
done
had to be done.
CPR 3 times this month. So I'm on a most of my job now is either office time or quick response vehicle, stuff like that. So I'm the backup. So like usually like I'll jump in there, do some chest compressions just to say I did, make myself look good. Like khaki pants showed up, like I got to do some chest compressions, and like, all right, what's the story? What's the downtime? Blah blah. And then I'm like, all right, let's take over. Like someone else do this. So oh yeah, we got Ross. Put my name down on that chart, please. So I get some credit for the Ross.
I did something.
I did something.
Yeah. So cool. Yeah. So the third myth there is performing CPR won't make a difference. And yeah, I think that's we like talk about the dismal stats of CPR. I think when I went through, I was told like less than 1% will live if you do CPR, and that's a load of shit, honestly.
Yeah, but at the same time, like we know, I guess according to AHA, if I remember correctly, like if someone's in a VFib arrest, their chance of survivability goes down by 10% for every minute they're in cardiac arrest. So if it takes EMS or first responders 12 minutes to get there, we are in big trouble. And like that's where we get the terrible ROSC rates and discharge rates and stuff like that. So I mean, they are dead. So we're trying to bring someone back to life. So it is complicated, but at the same time, that's a huge myth that, but if we can get some, like you were talking at the beginning of the show, if we can get bystanders to do CPR, like that fires up the crews and that fires up the first responders coming, that we know that we can get someone back.
Yeah. So, I mean, the best thing is bystanders starting CPR and somebody grabbing an AED off the wall. I can count on one hand the number of times I've seen a pre-hospital AED applied to a patient. But when it is, like I believe, I could be wrong about this. I'm going to misquote a statistic, but I believe in hospital cardiac arrests have like a survival of like 85%, are survival to discharge with neurologically intact. So all they're doing in the hospital that's making a difference is they do rapid CPR and they defibrillate really early on the patient. So in theory, we can get that survival. We can get close to that survival in the pre-hospital environment by just being able to use AEDs, knowing where they are, and starting CPR early with bystanders. It's I believe right now it's like the global statistics for cardiac arrest. I think the other website you sent me was like 90% of everybody that goes into cardiac arrest will die. But that's everybody. That's somebody that dies alone at home is included in that stat. So that's 1 out of 10, even so. So I think, CPR can make a huge difference. I think one point of clarification, though, with it is that CPR isn't going to bring most people back from the dead. CPR maintains that perfusion in the brain. It maintains perfusion in the heart. and your central nervous system, but it's not actually going to usually reverse that cause of cardiac arrest. You either need to address that with electricity, with AED is the most common because that addresses the electrical conduction issue, or do a reversal of something a little bit more complicated that might not be in the scope of a bystander.
And I thought like this, I guess, is a myth, but like I thought for a long time, like when we were doing chest compressions, that we were actually squeezing the heart. That you were pushing down the chest and you were physically squeezing the heart. And it wasn't until like a few years later, I was like, what the heck? Like we're not actually squeezing the heart. It's a pressure change. Like you're just creating pressure difference between inside the chest area versus outside the chest area, and it draws blood into the coronary arteries. Boom, spits them back out. And I was like, huh. So I'm not actually like squeezing the heart like a sponge and then open it back up. So like I think that maybe I'm the only one who thinks like that. But I was like that. It took a while for me to figure that out. That we're not actually like squeezing the heart like a sponge and then open it back up and let all the blood rush back in. And I squeeze it like a sponge, squeeze all the blood out. But really, it's the coronary arteries, like you were talking about. We're trying to keep the brain blood flow going and the heart blood flow going.
Yeah, because those, I think it's like after 3 minutes, you're in some serious trouble and you're starting to get some irreversible tissue damage. But that pressure gradient is also why you don't have to do mouth to mouth on adults, because every time you push down on the chest, you're increasing that thoracic pressure. You're making the patient exhale slightly, and then every time you release, they're going to inhale slightly. So you're getting small amounts of oxygen. And I think because CPR, I believe it circulates like 17% of your normal blood flow, something like that. I'm just quoting stats that could be completely wrong through this entire podcast.
They'll let us know in the comment section. It'll be fine.
If people are like, no, you're totally wrong. But with that, since you're only circulating at like 17% efficiency, with that, you only need about 17% of the O2. Like you don't need to basically perfuse that blood the exact same way you would for somebody that has a completely functioning heart. All we're trying to do is keep cells alive until that cardiac condition can be reversed.
Definitely. Let's see. Myth number 4. My friends and family are healthy. I don't need to know CPR.
Well, I mean, if you have only healthy people around you, I need to be in your friends group because I don't know anybody like that. Like,
I got a friend named Bubba. He is not healthy.
yeah, you're in the South, man. I'd imagine.
We're in the bacon belt, 100%. Like, forget the Bible belt. We are in the bacon belt, and like I say that a lot. Every time we're in CP training, I was like, "All right, cardiac arrest. This is how many cardiac arrests. We're in the bacon belt." Like, people are just falling over at the buffet. But I say, even if you are surrounded by healthy people that runs marathons, you eat nothing but lettuce and organic food. Accidents happen, and
Yeah.
I think about like kids falling into pools, falling into lakes, falling in the rivers.
Choking on
Accidents
something.
happen all the time, and so that to me is a reason to learn CPR is because of kids and pools and water and stuff like that.
Yeah, and like even if it's just adults and they're running marathons, like how many times do you read a news story that's marathon runner crosses the Boston finish line and falls down dead? Like that happens. People have undiagnosed cardiac conditions, you know, and you can make a difference in that. There's a reason that races and gyms all have first aid kits and AEDs everywhere because that stuff happens. I mean, I'll say I've never done CPR on anybody in a donut shop, but I have coded probably at least 15 to 20 people in gyms. So if that means anything, working out will kill you.
Yeah, I mean, like think about high school kids. Have been news reports of high school kids playing sports, playing basketball, and collapse on the gym floor, stuff like that. So, yep, I think that is a great reason. And then myth number 5, I laughed when I thought about this because I really did think about your infant CPR that went viral. It said I can learn CPR by watching a video online.
Yeah, you can't. You can't. I put out the video because I hope it helps somebody act, but man, you have to go hands-on. You have to have an instructor like showing you how to do it and correcting you as you do it, and it's a perishable skills, which is why it has to be recerted.
Yeah, I forget the data about that, but like my friend Bobby works for the HA talked about that. Like they've got data to show like right after you take a hands-only CPR class, like you're this proficient, and after a year it starts falling down. And 6 months after class, a year after class, a year and a half, 2 years. So that's why they want you to restart every 2 years because your proficiency and it starts to plummet really quickly, even straight after a class.
Yeah, and I have every reason in the world, and both of us have every reason in the world to tell people that, no, you can learn it on a video because we want more traffic and all of that. But really, truly, and what I put in front of every single one of my videos that's showing like a medical skill is, it's one thing to watch it and have a concept, which is important to understand that, but it's another thing entirely to do it. So really finding an instructor, it doesn't even have to be formal, honestly. Any firefighter, any EMT, any paramedic can show you how to do compressions. And that's the big thing. You don't need to learn every little nuance of it, but learn how to recognize it and then learn how to do compressions. And once you have those two basics, you've got a majority of it and you're going to be okay.
Yeah, I like the fact they took pulse, like for the layperson, like not checking for a pulse out of it. Because honestly, I've been on cardiac arrest going, hey, does this dude have a pulse? Can you feel for me? Like, I'm not 100% sure. Like, I don't know. Let's feel femoral. Like, I don't know.
You have one
So,
person on this carotid, one person on this carotid, one person on this femoral, one person on this femoral, and then some random EMT students checking a pedal pulse, and it's like, I don't know. Is there a pulse? Is that PE? Yeah, it's hard.
Somebody get the ultrasound out. Let's see.
You're right.
But, so I'm glad they took that out. But basically, you just have to look at the chest going, nope, there's no chest rise and fall. Let's start chest compressions. And if they wake up and tell you to stop pushing on their chest, stop pushing on their chest. But if they don't wake up, just keep pumping away until someone gets there.
Yeah, and like we were talking about like breaking ribs and stuff earlier. That sounds super gruesome, but I mean, long-term negative effects of that are minuscule. I don't think there actually is any demonstrated like long-term bad outcomes from having somebody's sternum separated from the rib cage. Like, it'll hurt. They're gonna spend some time in the hospital, but let's say somebody goes down and you started CPR. It was just a fainting. They done fell out, as they say in the South. With that, when in doubt, I would just start CPR. If you don't see their chest rise and fall, if they're not breathing effectively and they're down unresponsive, start CPR. Now, I will say, do you guys use geyser squeezers at all? I'm sorry, Lucas 3 devices or Zoll auto pulses?
We have not. Like, other departments have around us, but we do not have them.
So like with those, I've never seen it on manual CPR, but those give such strong compressions that I've seen people wake up in asystole and flatline. I've seen people wake up with that, and then you're like, oh, shoot, don't need to do CPR, and you stop it, and they fall back down, and they're dead again. And then you start it up, and then they're like, ow, 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 and they're trying to take it off, and so that's wild, but I don't think any of you will see that in the field.
Problem with those is, like, my department, we're fairly small. We have 9 ambulances, getting ready to put on 2 more, so we'll have 11 ambulances, and those devices are like $17,000 a piece. So I'm like, to outfit 9 ambulances like that, or like, it's a lot of money. I'm like, whew. So I get it, and they are. The data supports it, but it's just, they are super expensive.
Yeah, but you know what's more expensive? Firefighters. If you have more Lucas 3s, you know what you need less of? Firefighters.
We have volunteer firefighters.
Ooh, interesting. Okay,
Yes.
all right, never mind. I take it back.
No, we have the mix of like paid departments, volunteer departments. So it is, but yeah, like, we are looking at them, we're trying, but man, they're so expensive. And this is like off the cuff. Have you looked at anything like the heads up CPR stuff?
Yeah, I looked at that a little bit. Like with the Lucas 3, you can do it pretty effectively because you've got a neck strap on it. And for those listening, it's like taking somebody's head, putting it, I think it's like 30 degrees. And it's super counterintuitive. You'd think that would like reduce brain perfusion, but I've actually been reading it's really effective and increases your perfusion to the brain like 6-fold, something like that.
It's something ridiculous. So we were talking about the other day, looking at it. I was starting to do some research. There's lots about the UK, it looks like, coming out of there. It seems like most of the cool stuff is coming out of the UK. I guess because they don't have the lawsuits that we have over here. But it looks interesting.
Yeah, I'm super curious to see where that goes, but you really can only do that effectively with a Lucas 3 or a Zoll Auto Pulse, or whatever they have over there. It needs to be something that's mechanical.
Yeah, I'm not going to do a firefighter like, hey, we're going to set the stretcher up. I need you to like hit at a 30-degree angle. Probably not going to work.
Well, have you seen the one, I think there's a video out of Taiwan where they're literally holding this dude in cardiac arrest up by his hands, and then they're just kicking him in the chest repeatedly as he's sitting up. Maybe that's how we could do it.
Maybe if we could invent the new way to doing CPR, we could both retire and be done with this.
For legal reasons, that was a joke.
No one needs to call your HR department.
No. But yeah, that's super interesting. I do love how Europe does some of these studies because they also did the one Anytime you do an AED, is it clear, everybody clear? And they basically took a bunch of medical residents, student doctors, and they were like, hey, so when we charge this monitor, we want you to keep on doing compressions, and we don't want you to come off the chest. We're just going to shock the patient. We're going to see if you die. And what they managed to demonstrate with that, and lucky for the medical residents, is that with biphasic defibrillators, so in one pad, out the other, not just two big hits of energy, is that you don't actually have to clear the stretcher. If you have nitrile gloves on, that's enough of a barrier to not get shocked. My partner did this the other week. She was like, I'll just hold the pads on because he was kind of hairy. I was like, are you sure you want to do that? She's like, yeah, sure. Shocked through, and she was totally fine. For my HR department, that was also
a
hypothetical
joke.
And a joke.
For your HR department, just listen to our podcast. This is I've watched some videos that, man, that just terrifies me. Like, I don't know, like maybe the new generation EMS, we can get it to do it, and just we don't know any better. Like,
anybody that was brought up on monophasic defibrillators, you have a hard time convincing them that it's okay to be touching the patient. And I'm with you. I still clear it. I'm not touching the patient when I shock him.
No, I missed my one and only chance to actually use the paddles. I was a brand hammer new paramedic, and we had like a Life Pack 10 that had like the paddles. You have to put the gel on, you rub them together, and like hold them to their chest. Had one opportunity, and we went to pull this lady out of the bed, and when we did, we pulled her out of the bed, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna shock her as soon as we get to the floor. And I pulled her out of the bed, and we dropped her out of the floor onto the floor. And I guess it's like a prechoral thump. Like, she hit the floor, wham, and converted out of VFib.
So disappointed in you.
And I was like, oh, and that was my chance. Like, that was my career right there. I should have just shocked her in the bed and then moved her. But I was like, oh, let's just get her to the floor. And I missed my chance to use the paddles.
I'm disappointed in you.
Yeah. So that was it. That was my chance. Let's see. I'm gonna go look at some of the stats real quick before we close out. And I did, like, the first stat was hilarious. So we talked about it. It says 350,000 Americans die from cardiac arrest. Don't they all die from, like, eventually? Like, it doesn't matter if, like, you have cancer or you shoot yourself in the head with a 12 gauge. Like, you're gonna die of cardiac arrest because your heart. Because, like, I don't understand that statistic.
It says globally, cardiac arrest claims more lives than colorectal cancer, breast cancer, prostate cancer, influenza, pneumonia, auto accidents, HIV, firearms, and house fires combined. Man, that stat doesn't make any sense. 100% of everybody that's died of cardiac arrest. Maybe the cardiac arrest was secondary to something else, but like cardiac arrest is always secondary to something else.
No, that's a boring stat.
That's a dumb stat.
I should have. Bystander CPR improves survival. We talked about that. Help is needed immediately. Yeah, we know that. So we're not going to go through those stats. They're dumb. I'm not going to do it.
So also, coincidentally, the next stat is more than 350,000 cardiac arrests occur outside of the hospital each year. So I guess maybe one's American, one's global, but they don't make that clear. So it looks like 100% of all cardiac arrests happen pre-hospital, according to this website. Yeah, I don't like this website. Oh, wait. Here we go. Bystander CPR improves survival. The location of out-of-hospital cardiac arrest most often occurs in home residencies, 70%, followed by the public setting, 18.8%, and nursing homes, 11.2%. So it says if performed immediately, CPR can double or triple the chances of survival from an out-of-hospital cardiac arrest. So that's huge. You could triple somebody's chance of survival, somebody's chance of going home to their wife, kids, getting to live for however much longer until they make a bad decision. But, that if that right there doesn't like really make a case for learning CPR, I don't know what does. Yeah,
the thought I thought was interesting about that was at home is 70%, public setting is 18.8. So if you got more AEDs in public settings, it's probably going to provide a better outcome for your patients.
Yep. Absolutely, and that's huge. And like AEDs seem scary, but they're dummy proof. You put them down. They say like open the lid. You turn them on, open the lid, take the backing off the stickers, place them on the patient's bare chest in this configuration. Mm-hmm. And it tells you what to do. It even tells you how to do CPR. So a lot of AEDs have feedback devices, so they'll be like, hey, go faster, go slower, pause.
I think like the 11.2% of nursing home patients, I'm like, there's a reason why they're in a nursing home. They probably are have some comorbidities like heart failure, previous heart attacks, high cholesterol, diabetes. So those are going to be hard to get back anyway. Like your elderly patients, and they go into cardiac arrest, they are really difficult to get back. But it is like that 45 to 55-year-old range. I'm like, man, we can get these people back. Like,
Yep.
especially a witness cardiac arrest. Like, I feel confident that I'm going to get that person back when we get dispatched to it.
Yeah. Yeah, and like some nursing home residents might not. I don't know. Those places don't inspire life. I feel like half the time. There are some good
It's not their
nursing homes,
patient.
but there are some places. Oh man, they're like, oh, I get to finally rest. Nope, you saved them.
Yep. I love going to nursing homes because it's always like not their patient. They just come on shifts, not their hallway. Like, bless their hearts. Like, I get it. Like, they're probably understaffed too, just like we are. But I'm like, oh my gosh.
They're crazy understaffed, but I'm just sick of hearing the same excuse. Like, oh man, I just got back from vacation. Yeah, I don't know him. And you look at his chart, and he's been there for like 15 years. And you look at the nurse, she's like, yeah, I've been here for 25 years. You know, yeah, it's nursing homes are frustrating for EMS providers. Also, if
Yes.
you have a family member and you're looking to put them in a nursing home, do your research before you put them in a nursing home. Make sure you're going to a good place because there are a lot of not good places out there.
That's what I tell my parents. I was like, you better start saving your money because I'm going to put you in the best nursing home you can afford. So I'm like, you better know which one you can afford.
Go buy stuff on his website so he can afford to put his parents in a expensive nursing home.
Oh, they're going to be in a Medicaid bed if they don't watch out. Threaten me like
Ooh,
that.
ooh, interesting. Yeah,
My parents don't listen to the podcast, so I'm fine. I won't get in trouble.
not from them.
Yeah. Somebody, did you hear what Dietrich said on the podcast last week? We can put you in a Medicaid bed. Let's see. Only 46% of people get immediate help when they need professional help rise. So,
This is your
only
chance to be a
40,
hero. Act,
yeah.
do
I,
something.
I think it goes back to what you said. As long as everybody's just kind of standing around and waiting for someone to make the first step. And like you said, like if someone kneels down and goes starts chest compressions, someone else will probably step up, going, "Hey, I know CPR. I can help you, or I can go get you an AED." And it just takes one person to step up.
Yeah. And like I think that goes to another thing is there's a lot of hesitance, especially in the US, of like getting sued. You know, there's all kinds of anecdotal stories of like my aunt did CPR and then she got sued for $3 million. We have great Good Samaritan laws. So if you're doing something like CPR, stop the bleed, basic first aid stuff, and you're acting in good faith, if you do it completely wrong and screw everything up and you were legitimately trying, you can't get sued for it. You're legally protected from legal repercussions in that. So obviously, some things you do can still put you at risk, but if you're acting in good faith for the patient, you're protected, and there's really no reason not to.
Awesome. That's a great point.
Now, if you're taking in an NCD and you're doing a needle decompression of their chest and then cracking them, you're not covered. So
Yeah. You're gonna cut open, like put your hand inside their chest and start squeezing the heart manually because you saw it on TV. Probably not. That's not gonna cover you, huh?
no, probably not. I mean, maybe, but probably not.
Like I saw a doc do it one time on TV. Like they cut his chest, stuck their hand in there, and started squeezing the heart.
I was like a brand new EMT, and the helicopter that flies in Madison, where I kind of got my first training, I was still in like my EMT rides, I think, and that helicopter flies with a physician nurse, and they do like crazy cowboy shit on the side of the road. So there's like a car accident, traumatic arrest, and yeah, the physician cut open the dude's chest, spread the ribs, and was like doing manual massage of the heart. It's like, oh man, come over here. Have you ever tried this? Here, squeeze here. I'm brand new EMT. I'm like 18 years old. I'm like in some guy's chest, like, So yeah, that took a while to shake off.
We could probably have a lot more paramedics though if we could do that in the field.
Oh yeah, yeah. People are like, yeah, I'm gonna do that.
Yeah, somebody would like set up like I'm gonna sign up for class to do that. Like that's it. That's your PR video right there.
We just got approval to do finger Thors and chest tubes in the field, and now it's like a fight. Like every time we're flying onto traumatic rest, we're like, all right, you get left side of the chest, I'll get the right side of the chest.
Heck yeah. I have not. I've done it on a cadaver, but I haven't done that, and obviously in real life. I think it'll be cool. So awesome. Do you have anything else?
Nope, that's it.
Awesome. Where can people find you at?
I am on YouTube, PrepMedic, on YouTube, and then I'm Prep_Medic on Instagram.
Awesome. So I'm Skinny Medic on YouTube and Skinny Medic on Instagram. I don't even remember my handles, what they are, but just search it. And then Medical Gear Outfitters. So I appreciate the support over there. Supplies are still hard to come by. Like we thought we would be better. Like that's what we were being told by the major manufacturers. Like, oh, everything will be better by May. We'll be better by May. Things are not better. And they are doing what they can. I don't particularly can't name the manufacturers, but large manufacturers are doing more than what they were doing. They've increased production. They've got a second shift, talking about doing a third shift on production stuff. They just cannot keep up. So then that trickles down to us. So we either take back orders or we don't sell stuff, and I can't afford not to sell stuff. So most people are being super understanding, which I appreciate. But yeah, we're having to wait 14, 16 weeks on supplies right now. And so now we're having to stage out orders like, all right, 2 more weeks of this will come in. We got this coming in. So I appreciate everybody being patient with us at Medical Gear. So we're trying. This is a whole new ball game. Like we made it through COVID, and I was like, sweet, we are good to go. And now this has hit. So we are fighting through it. But I appreciate the support and the patience over there. Awesome. Well, thank you guys. We will hopefully be back by the end of the year. We'll record another episode by the end of the year.
Good goal. Good and achievable.
Yeah, I'm like, that's achievable. Like, all right, but by Thanksgiving, we will see you guys. Hope everybody has a great summer, great fall. But we will do one by the end of the year. Thank you guys.
See you guys.